You're locked on to Hans Olsen and Scotty Chin. That's right. Yeah! On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. NBA playoffs roll on. Cleveland just dump trucks Miami. They advance into the next round. Fun one with last night as well, with a going right down to the wire. And I'm telling you, this has been a really interesting series to watch between Golden State and the Rockets. Jimmy Butler comes in and, again, coming off the injury, 27.6 assists. Golden State gets the win against the Rockets. Again, 109-106. They lead that series 3-1. To help break down the NBA playoffs, one of our favorites, Mark Medina, writes for Athlon Sports and Sportskeeda, as well as a guest analyst on Fox Sports Radio. Kind enough to join us. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great. The NBA playoffs, so couldn't ask for anything more.
I know, right? You know, it's interesting. The 82-game season, it's long, it's drawn out. You see the load management, and yet sometimes you kind of forget how much fun the NBA can be. But then the playoffs roll around, you're like, okay, now I know why I love this sport so much.
Yeah, it's fascinating because now every single game matters. The playoff intensity matters. You know, unlike the regular season, a lot of the times from coaches and players, it's about getting to the next city, getting ready for the next opponent, just trying to be ready. But now they can actually dive into the scouting report with a lot more intricate detail. So with that comes a lot more fascinating developments from game to game.
I want to talk about Cleveland. There's been some thought, and maybe it's because here in Salt Lake City, there's a little bit of Donovan Mitchell fatigue and, you know, and maybe some jealousy to a certain extent, but he is playing at an extremely high level. The Cavs are playing at an extremely high level. I don't know if any of us really thought that they'd challenge Boston to come out of the East, but should we be talking about them as coming out of the East and a potential team that could dethrone the Celtics?
Oh, very well. I mean, it's not going to be guaranteed. If I had to make a pick who wins between Cleveland and Boston, it's really a coin flip. I think that every single game will be decided within a few possessions, assuming no major injuries on either side. But to tie it into the Utah Jazz's audience and maybe perpetuate even more jealousy, one of the fascinating takeaways that I took from being able to be around Cleveland a little bit during the season is they're very much trying to guard against being one of those dominant regular season teams that don't carry it, have postseason success. And to guard against that is just knowing that the playoffs are such a different animal, not getting too high or low with other results. And Donovan Mitchell himself has said that, he has enough perspective in dealing with that because, he's had a lot of dominance in Utah with the regular season and, he had playoff success but also playoff shortcomings. And so that makes him feel more prepared for this moment, this time around. It also helps that when you look at the roster, they're very complete. They have a great dynamic that Donovan Mitchell has with, Darius Garland. You look at the front court, same thing with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Kenny Atkinson's really revitalized that team with a much more efficient offense. And defensively, and even with them, they didn't feel complacent enough in the trade deadline to say, hey, we're just going to stand pat. They decided to get DeAndre Hunter because they knew that having another wing defender can always spell a difference in the playoffs. So, again, they definitely have a legitimate chance to contend, but whether it's enough for Boston, again, I know it's not great for sports talk radio, but I think it is a 7-game series, and it could happen either way.
All right, so I guarantee you have not been asked this question in any of your sports radio interviews, but so this one's coming out of left field. But he is a local guy, played at Bountiful High School here in Utah, played at Utah State. What's the free agent market look like for Sam Merrill going into this offseason?
Well, I honestly don't even know. I couldn't even try to entertain a guess. I've been so dialed into postseason mode. So I'll have a better answer for you next go around in the offseason.
Fair enough. Is this likely the end of a career for Damian Lillard, or will he try to fight back through this Achilles injury?
Yeah, I don't think it's career ending. I think it's certainly career altering, though. I mean, when you look at how Achilles injuries are, there's a recipe to come back, but I think that Dominique Wilkins is really the only success story when it comes out of that, where he was able to come back and not only be an all-star again, but actually have better averages. You know, the norm is for players like Kobe Bryant and Klay Thompson and some other players to come back, but they're not the same caliber of player. And the reason is it takes a long rehab, and, you know, with the long rehab, you almost need that next season just to integrate and get back into a rhythm. So I don't think that this is career-ending by any means, but it's certainly going to change, I think, the trajectory of his career, and it's not guaranteed whether he'll be an all-star ever again.
I talked about Jimmy Butler and what he's meant to Golden State. I think we all assumed that Jimmy Butler would make Golden State better, but are you even surprised by how much he's elevated this team?
Yes and no. I'm not surprised from an X's and O's standpoint. I think that what they got is what they expected. That, you know, he's Jimmy buckets for a reason. He's playoff Jimmy for a reason. They have that competitive edge. And the way he scores is very complimentary to Steph Curry, where master at the mid-range, gets the rim, gets free throw lines. We know Steph is the master of three and his playmaking. But I am pleasantly surprised about his durability. I mean, part of the reason why the Heat were so reluctant with giving him an extension last offseason was because of his age and what he was dealing with his injuries. But, you know, so far, so good. I mean, obviously he is coming back from an injury, but that was more of a game situation, and now he's back and up and running. But, you know, I think that the Warriors, talking to Mike Dunleavy, their general manager, and people around the team, they very much felt like the first half of the season, even with Steph Curry and Draymond Green playing at their, you know, reasonable best, that it really wasn't enough to make a serious run. And they felt with Jimmy Butler, it wouldn't guarantee them title contending status, but it'll at least give them a shot. And part of that has to do with just how great that fit is with Steph Curry. So much that, you know, I talked with Steph's trainer the other day, Brandon Payne, and he said, you know, from a dynamic standpoint, Steph Curry's chemistry with Jimmy Butler is very similar to how it is with Kevin Durant, because, one, the games complement each other well, but Steph is so great with adjusting his game of finding a way to still play at a high level while allowing that other superstar to still play at his level, that none of this is surprising from that X's and O's lens.
So Aaron Gordon's NC State replay keeps the Nuggets alive in that series 2-2 with that win against the Clippers. You know, the Denver has been such an interesting story with the coaching change and everything that's gone along with that. But now that series is all even up, how do you look at this essentially best of three between these two?
Yeah, I've learned that every playoff game has its own identity, but I think that in this case, it would have been a very much different scenario if the Clippers had a 3-1 series lead than if it was tied 2-2. And I thought after Game 3 that while the Clippers, to their credit, said, hey, we got to take Game 4 seriously, we got a tight turnaround, the Nuggets won a title 2 years ago, they got Nikola Jokic on their team. I thought all of that was just lip service because it looked like the Nuggets were running out of gas. They had a lot of injury concerns with Michael Porter Jr., and the Clippers have been playing at a really high level with Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Avita Zubac, Norman Powell. You basically go down the entire roster. So what this means for Game 5 tonight, I still give the edge to the Clippers because I think that they are the better team, but the Nuggets are a resilient team. They're playing at home. They got a good crowd and fan base there, and the altitude's always a thing. This is one of these series that I feel like the Game 3 was the outlier, and what's more the norm is Game 1, 2, and 4. That's going to be decided on the final play, and it'll make for, you know, an epic showdown.
You know, there's been some people that I follow on Twitter in the Milwaukee market that feel like they need to blow that thing up. Giannis, obviously, you know, you don't know where his mind's going to be at, but this certainly feels like an end of an era in Milwaukee. Is that a fair statement to make if they can't come back in the series against the Pacers? Well,
I think it's very fair to say, what do they do with this crossroads moment? Because, you know, this would be their third consecutive first-round playoff exit. And I know that Giannis, he went viral a few years ago when he was saying, oh, this isn't a failure. Just because you lose doesn't mean you're a failure. You get up and win. But I think what's lost in that context is that, I remember Kobe Bryant when they didn't win their third consecutive championship, and someone was asking him, well, how do you at least put in context you defend you won 2 consecutive titles, you made 3 finals appearances, and Kobe was like, I don't care, like, we got swept. This year was a wasted year of my life, right?
Yeah.
So with that, what this means for the Bucks, I don't think it's about blowing it up, because as long as you have a superstar in your team, you do whatever you can to keep that superstar. But clearly the formula around Giannis doesn't work, that they have to entertain changes everywhere else. And if it ever got to the point that Giannis made it clear, hey, I won out, then they got to make a decision on, okay, what's our litmus test on what would be a quote-unquote acceptable trade for Giannis. I mean, I don't think it would be good for them to do it preemptively. It's only if it makes it clear he wants out. And I don't know if Giannis has ever gotten to that point or if he ever will, because of the nature of how he is as a person and player. But I think from the Bucks organization standpoint, at least in this point in time, whether they get out of the first round or they lose again, I think it's always about what do you do to make sure that Giannis still wants to be in a Bucks uniform. And the simple formula for that is, what can you do to maximize his championship window? And so with that, it's all about keeping everything on the table around Giannis to change.
Does that include coaching staff?
I think it includes everything. Teammates, coaching staff. I mean, I think the tough thing about the Bucks is, short term, there's been a lot of changes. Teammates, coaches, all that. But, if you want to change the results, you got to look at what's necessary. But I would stress too early for a teardown, because that means you're trading Giannis. And again, unless they get direct messaging from him that he wants out, you always got to build around an NBA star.
Well, considering we're in, year 3 of the Jazz rebuild. Rebuilds are no fun. And it's not a lot of great things. It's not a lot of fun to be a part of. From what you know, and I know you're knee-deep in the playoffs right now, but talking to general managers and scouts, is Cooper Flagg a player worth scuttling your season for in hopes of getting that number 1 pick?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Cooper Flagg is the real deal. It's interesting. He was the John Wooden Award finalist, and talking to him and some other people around college basketball a few weeks ago, I think the feeling is that, he technically hasn't declared himself eligible, but, he's going to do that. He's very NBA ready, and he's going to be a transformational talent because he's so skilled in a lot of things, and he has the right makeup as far as his work ethic, his demeanor, just that he wants to contribute to winning basketball. I think the unique thing about Cooper Flagg is that unlike other, there's a lot of number 1 picks, transformative talents that have this defining trait about them, whether it's LeBron James and just how he has the football-sized body but a Magic Johnson type of game, or Zion Williamson with that power. I don't think Cooper Flagg has a defined trait about him, but he's so good at so many different things. It makes me believe he's going to be a complete player. And I think in the short term, he can very well adapt to whoever, winds up with the number 1 pick of being the franchise savior leader, or at least in the interim, being that complementary role, because he's so multifaceted and he's so about trying to contribute to winning. I think he's very adaptable, but he's also not the jack of all trades, master of none, because he isn't a very elite, talented player. So, there's a reason why teams are tanking for him, because he can dramatically change a franchise.
How much of a drop-off is it from Cooper Flagg to either Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey that could fall in that 2-3 range?
Yeah, I think it's a significant drop-off, not because of any indictment on the draft class. It's just that you don't always get a transformational talent every single year. I know recently we've seen that with Victor Wembanyama, and again, he's a unique player where, his defined skill set is he's a big man with point guard skills. But in this case, I think it's more different. It's, he's got a lot of attention, Cooper Flagg, for some of his highlight reel dunks and all that. But aside from some of those highlight reels, a lot of the biggest things about him is just the day-to-day things that he excels at. And I think that that's transferable not only to the NBA, but like any role. Again, whether he's franchise savior or in the short term, number 2, number 3, or complimentary guy, like he is going to adapt very seamlessly. And, you know, the separation of skills that he has versus everyone in his draft class is pretty night and day.
What has jumped out to you as to why Minnesota is up 3-1 against the Los Angeles Lakers?
Yeah, there's a few things. One, Minnesota has taken its game to another level. Anthony Edwards, we've seen him grow dramatically as a scorer, playmaker, leader. The fit with Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle is a lot better. 3, they've had players like Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid score and also make intangible plays. On the Lakers' end, they surprisingly excelled well defensively after the Anthony Davis trade, but we've seen that doesn't translate to playoff basketball. They don't have enough center depth behind Jackson Hayes. They also don't have enough perimeter defending depth. They have some guys that try hard a lot. I think to a man, someone like Gabe Vincent, Dorian Finney-Smith are good defenders, but it's not enough for the team to be an elite defensive team on the wings. So that's the main thing. And then I think the second thing is LeBron James, Luka Doncic, they've mostly played well, but Luka dealt with an illness in Game 3, so he was a shell of himself there. And then there's been times throughout the series where LeBron's shown his greatness and other times where he's shown father time, you know, reminded him that he's 40 years old. So it's a very tough road to sled. You know, I think that what this means moving forward, the Lakers could very well come out and overcome this and win the series, but I doubt it because Minnesota is a really good team, and I think that they're ready to make that next leap after last year's playoff run.
Before we let you go, is there anything that you have seen out of the West that leads you to believe that Oklahoma City is still not the odds-on favorite to come out of the conference?
I haven't seen anything that convinces me the Thunder won't get out of the Western Conference. I've just seen everything great about the Thunder. They've cruised to the playoffs so far. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to get MVP. He's raising his game to another level, leading the league in scoring, improved as a playmaker. They just have so much wing depth when you go down the line with Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace. You know, they're never going to stop a team's elite defensive player, but in the playoffs, when you have multiple bodies, that helps a lot. And I think that the front court chemistry that Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren give, it's amazing because it allows them to play big at certain times, and their pick and roll chemistry with Shai is great, and their rim protection's elite. So, you know, I think last year their supposed weakness was they're young and inexperienced. They've gotten past that. Their other tangible weakness was they weren't a great rebounding team. They've gotten much better there, and all the strengths that we saw last season, Shai, you know, perimeter defense, and just team chemistry, all that's even stronger this season. So, yeah, they're getting out of the West, and then it's just a matter of how healthy they are and if it's good enough to, beat either Cleveland or Boston in the finals.
Okay, I lied. This is the last one, I promise. This is a fascinating conversation. If Jokic had not won multiple MVPs but had the season that he's currently having, is he closer to getting that MVP, or is it still Shai's award to lose?
Yeah, that's interesting because every voter has its different, criteria. This is not a sample size of what's to come because it was only 4 assistant coaches. But for what it's worth, when I asked a few assistant coaches before the season ended who would they choose, they all chose Shai. And I pressed the counterpoint. Well, what do you say to the Jokic supporters that say, look, Jokic is averaging a triple-double, and he's dealt with a lot of external turbulence of, weaker supporting cast, injuries with Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, the recent firings with Michael Malone and Calvin Booth. And those coaches counter with this. One, every player and team deals with circumstances that are beyond their control, that are tough, and they somehow get away through it. But they made it clear this isn't like a knock on Jokic at all. It was just more validating that when you're looking at the Thunder, they had overlapping injuries with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. And the other thing that they wanted to give Shea credit for was he's not just getting stats. He's elevating his teammates. The reason why Jalen Williams got an all-star nod this season partly had to do with with Shea. The reason why, the pick-and-roll depth with Chet and Isaiah work has to do with Shea. He's not an elite defender, but he's a willing defender. So even though most of the credit goes to those wing players I was talking about, Shea also deserves some credit for, the Thunder being the best defensive team in the league. And so I think what I'm getting at is the assistant coach's feedback was that Shea has really taken his game to another level, and Jokic is definitely deserving, but it is so tight of a race that they're having to split hairs of things that shouldn't really matter, but that could tilt the scale into why they gave the edge to Shea.
Awesome. Hey, appreciate it. Great insight as always, Mark. You're killing it, and thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate you.
Good stuff. Mark Medina with Athlon, Sportskeeda, as well as Fox Sports Radio right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hey, remember, nominate the youth sports volunteer for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest. And then listen every Thursday to JJ and Alex as they announce a winner. It's the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Mills. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah! We've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, this is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Make sure to win big every Wednesday. Tomorrow is your day, as it's another Win Ticket Wednesday. Your chance to win tickets to hear this band, Collective Soul. That's right. The Summer Unity Tour featuring Collective Soul and special guest Our Lady Peace, July 13th at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Get tickets now at livenation.com or listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. Uh-oh. DJ's standing us up. Come on, DJ. I'm texting him right now. You hopping on with us? Question mark. All right. We can't have that. Come on, DJ. Not
you
okay.
passive-aggressive little punks.
I would not want to be a passive-aggressive little punk. I'll be a full-aggressive little punk if you stand us up. Come on, we can't be doing that. That's not okay. All right, David James is going to join us here in just a moment. You hear him every morning from 6 to 10. In fact, he's here right now. DJ, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Scotty G?
I'm better now. I get to hear your voice. Everything good in your world?
Yeah, I'm driving right now, so you can probably hear the beep, beep, beep. But, yes, I'm good. I'm just leaving RSL. This will shock you, but the team's practice didn't end on time.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, that's a rare thing. Everybody, usually, coaches like to stick to a strict schedule, especially the end of practice.
They'll tell you about schedules all day long, but it comes to the end of practice, yeah, well, that hasn't changed since we were playing high school sports. And it was probably like that before then. We just didn't know it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I set up an interview with a coach who shall remain nameless once, and he was about 6 minutes late calling in. And I texted him. I'm like, hey, appreciate you hopping on. Just curious to know what you do to a player if he showed up 6 minutes late to practice. And he said there's a little difference between that and me hopping on with you on the radio. And if you want me to continue to do that, then maybe let's take this conversation in a different tone. And I'm like, all right, fair enough.
I respect that, Scotty.
Nice.
Yeah. So
what's going on? What's the big story now, Scotty? I've been off the radio for almost 4 hours.
For almost 4 hours now, you have not graced these airwaves. I'm curious to know from you if you feel like, in your heart of hearts, in watching a little college basketball, is Cooper Flagg worth what the Jazz went through in their hopes of getting him?
Yes.
That simple.
Yes, I do feel that. And it's not just because I feel that. So many people have had eyes on him longer than I have, for sure. And they know more about basketball than me. They're all unanimous about it. I mean, this is just if you want to go read 20 Cooper Flagg stories, you're not going to find a story about him being mediocre.
Nope.
I think the most powerful thing is that he at 17 was on that USA Select team and a summer ago. And so he's playing against NBA guys because the select teams come in, right? That's what they do, right? They play against the national team for whatever competition they're getting ready for. And so they would have been getting ready for the Olympics, right? And he was lights out right from the get-go. Right from the get-go. All the NBA guys are like, yeah, I've heard about him. He can play. And, when that's the immediate reaction from NBA guys, who may, not these particular NBA guys, but NBA guys in general over time, they may have been jealous of a player or two. They may have not wanted somebody on an Olympic team. They may have wanted to freeze a couple guys out of all-star games. And when they all just nod and go, oh, yeah, he's the guy, well, I think it'd be foolish for the rest of us to argue, about him not being the guy. I think the problem is, for the people who are screaming at their radio, DJ, usually so logical, you're a moron right now. I think the problem is that they went through all of this, and there's an 86% chance they won't get him. Now, if you don't go through it, you have a 0% chance of getting him. And I haven't heard leaning on the fence, waiting for Ralph Salt Lake to end, the talk went to the NBA draft, and there was another media member who said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but he's going to Philadelphia. And we're like, yeah, well, that does make you a conspiracy theorist. They have the fifth best odds, and you think it's a slam dunk right now. And it's like, commissioner, TV ratings, prop up a semi-healthy Joel Embiid. Yeah, he's going to Philly. Period.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, there you go. I guess we'll all tune in on May 12th, and we'll find out if the conspiracy theorists are right. And then the question is, are they right because they had I don't know what it is, 9 or 10% chance, whatever it is, of being right? Or are they right because the fix really was in? Then everyone can argue about that. That's the beautiful thing about conspiracies. The deep conspiracy. We just don't have the smoking gun yet,
Yeah. Well, remember, you can log on to KSLSports.com and donate your $2 to Primary Children's Hospital for your chance to create a little good karma for the Jazz to pick up that #1 overall pick. By the way, this just barely came out, and so I will, because I know you're a ratings geek, the 2025 NFL Draft in Green Bay was seen by an average audience of 7.5 million viewers across ESPN, ABC, NFL Network, and all the other multiple channels, making it the second most watched draft on record, behind only 2020. And remember, we were knee-deep in the pandemic with no sports going on whatsoever, so that's not surprising that 2020 draft exploded like it did. But they said that it was the most watched day 3 on record with 4.3 million average viewers. Thank you, Shedeur Sanders, for those day 3 numbers. That's
100%.
That 1,000% screams Shedeur on day 3.
But I think the whole thing did. I think day 1 always does well, but I do think you get the big numbers because people stay put. Because depending on when your team drafts, how into it you are, what time zone you're in, and how late it gets to be at night, people will drift away after pick 10, 15, 20, 25, right?
Yeah.
Depending on how good the NBA and NHL playoff games that they're going head-to-head with, there are other things going on. But Sanders is plummeting. Come on, when he dropped out of the top 10, our interest was peaked. When it got to 15, it's the Steelers at 20. And we all looked at the draft order after that and thought, well, these are all the good teams. They already have quarterbacks. The Rams, maybe because their guy's much older, right? Stafford's getting into his late 30s. So maybe they draft him as a bridge quarterback. Otherwise, there's got to be a trade or he's going to fall even further. I literally said that to somebody, and he laughed because he had somebody text it to him like 30 seconds later. Oh, you're thinking the same thing. I'm like, I think we're all thinking the same thing. We're all into it enough to know that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Sanders' celebrity, day 2 and 3 get progressively harder to watch because the stars are gone. So, yeah, it's the Sanders effect. And I think also that tells you why it's a 3-day event because in college football, the gold standard is a game with 4 million people, right? There's just a handful of games. Maybe you get a couple games a week that can do that, and it's a big deal. And so if you have an event that 7 million people watch, it doesn't matter what it is. 7 million people is a lot of people. And that means 330 or 40 million people are ignoring it in this country. But if you get 7 million people in one place at one time paying attention, you can sell a lot of stuff. Life insurance, trucks, beer, soda, movies, the next big movie. all the stuff we see during games.
It just blows me away that, and I don't know if this has changed over the last week, but Lloyd, I think it was, about a week ago, we said that the NHL had not had a game that the NHL playoffs had not had a game that averaged over 1 million viewers. Now, that may have changed in the last few days since we talked about that, but the fact that the NFL draft is smack dab in the middle of the offseason in April had 7.5 million viewers on average is just insane to me.
Well, it's the big dog, and it has been the big dog for a while, and it will continue to be the big dog for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, I mean, there's a reason they turned it into a 3-day TV event. And at the time, it was like, why are they doing this? It's like, well, because it's a television show, and it's a lucrative one.
Yep.
Period, end of story. They get a lot of money for this stuff.
David James joining us right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Give me your current thoughts on where RSL is right now and realistic expectations for the season.
It's hard to know with the whole season because there is a summer transfer window, and that is when most of the best players in Europe are available. So you can really add some good talent then. It's tricky the way it falls in the schedule. You don't actually have half the season. You have about a third. So not knowing the injuries and not knowing that, I think right now, they could be a playoff team. It would be hard with a straight face to suggest anything else. Having said that, there's a lot of parity in this league, and we have seen teams that start slowly that, finish fast, and we have seen teams that have been the 3 and 4 seeds in their conference play each other to the championship. Last year, the top 6 teams in the league, 4 of them went out in the first round, including RSL, including Miami with Messi. So there's a crazy parity, and so you got to say almost anything can happen. But basically, there's 15 teams in a conference. 4 are at home in the first round. 5 are in the postseason. But on the road for the first round, there's a play-in game for 8-9. And then you're going to have 6 teams miss. Right now, they're one of the 6. They're starting to play better. They have some young guys who are coming on. They're starting to 18. And Gozo is playing well. I mean, I thought he looked really good in San Diego, and Pablo Mastroeni did too because he didn't sub him out. He's got 5 subs, and he didn't use them. He played him 90 minutes. So, young guys coming on. But, I mean, top 4, that's a pretty outrageous thing to say right now. It's like they'd have to have some things really go their way and some guys take off. We'll see. Crazier things have happened in MLS. A ton of parity.
We have some clarification because Lloyd said something about you earlier in the show, and I'm not exactly sure if it's real or not. We were
okay.
No. We were talking about an AFC West podcast where Lloyd represents the Raiders, I represent the Broncos, and then we have who else were we talking about?
Well, we're not going to do a Chiefs, but...
Oh, yeah. Bowler does the Chiefs. Yeah, that's right.
Oh.
And then I forgot about Bowler. And then we brought up you and the Chargers, or I brought up you and the Chargers, and Lloyd says, no, the Chargers are dead to DJ. DJ doesn't care about the Chargers anymore. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, there's still a vested interest there. Is that organization, since they moved to LA, are they dead to you now?
Not only is it dead to me, I probably could find 10 or 15 other people I know from San Diego who would all tell you they're dead to them too. I golfed we went down to San Diego for Christmas, and I golfed with our oldest kid, and we got paired up with 2 guys, and I played on a course that was like, I'd never played, and it was like 4 minutes from where I grew up, but I didn't golf when I was a teenager. It was too expensive. Dad kept us away from it. And so we're there, and I'm playing with these 2 guys. We start chatting with them, and eventually the talk turns to the Chargers moving, and one of the guys, who's probably about a 5 or 6 handicap, he's like, I used to love the Chargers. Every Sunday was about the Chargers, and now I don't watch the NFL. I go golfing every Sunday. He's dead on the whole league. The Chargers are only alive to me like the other 31 teams are alive. I mean, of course I know who their coach and their quarterback are, but I know who most of the coaches and quarterbacks are, right? I'm sure an interim guy will sneak through at the end of the year, and I don't know. Nobody really follows the Jags, but you know what I'm getting at, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of course I know. But no, do I get a rush when they win anymore? No. And it's funny, my aunt couldn't believe it. She did not comprehend this. And she married a guy who grew up in Palo Alto when it was farms, right? They're in their 80s now. And they're Niners season ticket holders. They live in Reno, and they've commuted down for years to go to Niner home games. And it's a family thing. Their kids have grown up and moved to L.A., and their boys are flying back up to go to games and meet them there. And I looked at my uncle when she said that. I said, would you root for the L.A. 49ers? And he burst out laughing. So, Scotty, I'll just say to you, would you root for the L.A. Broncos?
I don't think I could. Yeah, no, that's fair. But,
there it is.
But I don't know. San Diego is pretty much a
it's worse.
suburban.
That's exactly why it's worse. Scotty, if they were the Vegas Chargers, I would hate it, but I might still be in.
Oh, okay.
I would hate it, but I might still be in. But L.A., that's not getting a divorce. That's getting a divorce and your ex marries your older brother. No, it's unacceptable.
Wow. Okay.
And it's the same way I felt when the Clippers moved to L.A. This isn't the first time this happened to me. I was in college when the Clippers moved to L.A. That sucked. It sucked. I loved having an NBA team in San Diego. They were only there like 6 or 7 years, but they moved there when I was in junior high, and I went to games when I was in high school. I loved it. We had a chance to play my high school team in a summer league. The NBA season used to start a lot earlier, and if you played in the final of this summer league, you played before an NBA preseason game, like 4 o'clock or whatever, 4 or 7 o'clock game, and we weren't good enough. And we were good enough to get in the summer league playoff thing, and we pulled 2 upsets, and we needed one more to play in that, and we choked like dogs. We played a terrible game. Granted, maybe if we played well, we would have lost because the other team might have just been better than us. But I'm telling you, we stunk. And it was the thought. We were totally caught up in the moment. We sucked. It was terrible. That would have been great. I was pissed when they moved. And the Chargers had a half-century tradition, 56 years, I think. My grandpa was a season ticket holder and campaigned for the original stadium to be built. He went door to door. Yeah, it was awesome. And then it sucked. It just sucked. And you knew it was coming. I mean, this is why, no matter how much you get frustrated with ownership, the pro teams here are owned by local people. And they don't want to move it out of their town. The San Diego teams aren't owned by local people. They never are. If somebody with a lot of money wants to buy a team, they're like, yeah, I'll make San Diego my second home. Yeah, well, people from Stockton decided to move the team to L.A. What do they care? They're from Stockton. They moved a camp in like 2004, and he did it in 2005. And a B writer went up and wrote a story, because even then everybody's like, "Oh crap, they're going to move to L.A. We've seen this movie. There's more money. Oh crap." That was the attitude, right? And he wrote a story. He says the first day of camp, usually attended by thousands at UC San Diego, and he said, and today there were 6 people there. 6. Nobody really cares. And Plasky wrote it when they moved there. Nobody cares. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
We don't want you.
Yeah, no.
All you do is make it harder for us to get the out-of-market games we want to see. What are you doing here?
That's fair. Hey.
And they still play in front of a stadium that's half full or 3/4 full with visiting fans.
Oh, yeah. No, I had a buddy that went to the
last 5 years in San Diego, they were lame duck, and it happened.
Yeah. My buddy who's a Broncos fan said he sent me a picture when he was down there watching the Broncos play, and it was 3/4 orange, if not more.
Yeah. Yep. And they're maybe don't care.
Yep.
And, it's this way it is. And if you go and put in, I think it was 2006, there's the Steelers-Chargers Monday Night Football game. And the opening, and everybody's wearing gold, and, they tell the stadium to make noise because the team came in, and it was deafening. It was just raucous. It was crazy. It was awesome. But, hey, times change and money talks, and, you can call them governors, but they own the team, and if they want to move it, they move it. And if they want a submarine stadium proposals, then they do it. I'll give you $200 million to build a stadium in San Diego, but I'll give you $600 million if you let me move to L.A. He wanted to move to L.A. That's why he moved to camp, and that's why he paid more money than he's willing to pay for a stadium in San Diego.
So I guess the bottom line is you don't want to be part of the podcast.
You need someone else. You need someone who follows the charges, and I don't know who that is. I honestly, there is somebody out there. Now I take that back.
We got somebody.
I know who it is. Yes, you do. You do, Lloyd. You do have somebody, and he's in-house. He'll do it.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's Lloyd already brought him up, but I'm like, no, DJ's got it covered. And then, no, apparently you do not. So we found out.
Somebody gave me Charger head covers for my golf club, and I've never opened them up, and I've got to remember to give them to him because he's the one guy I know who roots for the Chargers in L.A. Because he lives here, and he fell in love with the Chargers, so it doesn't really matter to him which California city they play in.
Yeah. DJ, you're the best, man. We appreciate it.
All right, that was it. That was half Charger talk. I can't believe you just did that, but whatever.
It was about Lloyd timed it. It's about 6 minutes of you. Yeah.
And that's about a third. Then that's about a third of the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah, and they'll probably win a Super Bowl in L.A. with Harbaugh. I mean, what the hell? Yeah, sure. Great. 56 years of sucking in San Diego. Go win one in L.A. Awesome.
Thanks, DJ.
See you, bye.
All right, see ya.
You passive-aggressive little punks.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah,
I tried to tell you. He hates the Chargers.
Fair enough. I think that was well established. You know, that was Hurricane DJ in its purest form right there. Once that tsunami starts rolling, there's no stopping it. It's like just circling in the Gulf of Mexico.
No, you just take shelter.
Picking up steam, picking up more moisture, and it's ready to hit. That, whether it be whatever poor city in Florida with a bunch of trailer parks, it's just coming to wreck you. All right, 154, Hans and Scotty, Whole World News next.
Go! It's time to span the globe for the hard-hitting news you care about. Well, not really. But hey, at least we found it interesting. This is Whole World News on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
We've got the whole world in our hands.
You got the whole world in our hands. We've got the whole
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, it is Whole World News. We span the globe to try to find something that hopefully will interest you in some way, shape, or form. Before we get to that, though, remember, it is a Minky Monday coming up on Monday, where you can listen all day, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, to win a Minky Couture blanket. The original classy blanket, Minky Couture offers the perfect Mother's Day gift, and Zone listeners can get 50% off using the code ZONE50. That's ZONE50. Don't miss Minky Monday coming up on Monday on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, let's go to Gulf Shores, Alabama, as a group of beachgoers all of a sudden saw something wash up to shore, and they were wondering, my goodness, what is this? It's a little box. They looked at it and realized that it was, in fact, a urn, and it was chock full of somebody's cremated remains. It was, and so the police said, yeah, we have an urn here, and we don't know why it has just shown up to shore. Well, finally, because it got so much publicity, that the family did come forward and said, yes, it's our urn. They just got a little confused with what was wanted. They wanted, the person who passed wanted their ashes to be spread out on the water. They just thought we could just chuck the whole urn in. So it was intentional. And apparently spreading the ashes and just throwing the whole urn and just being done with it were something got their wires crossed. And seeing that the person who made the request is, their remains are in the urn, they couldn't clarify. So, yeah, they just decided to toss the whole box in.
You know what? That just sounds like customer service today right now.
Yeah. The family that tossed the urn in did so from the end of Gulf State Park Pier. It was 2 days later that the remains washed ashore 3.5 miles to the west near Little Lagoon Pass. Plans are being made to return the remains to the family. But I don't know if they want them or not. They're like, hey, we did what we were supposed to. We tossed them in.
We did the job.
Should be done now. Wow. Are you, if you could have your remains put anywhere, where you have like any specific place, maybe up one of the four cabins? Or?
Yes. You know, it actually would be. Part of me wants to be in Wyoming on the property there in Wyoming. and I would like to be flowing down some rivers.
So spread out on the water.
Yeah, spread out on the water. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Put me with the fishes for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say there's this little, these mountains that we used to do a lot of camping in up in Idaho, kind of in the back area near Albion, if people know their Idaho geography. I'd be pretty happy there.
That'd be good. Little bear world.
No,
maybe
not bear world.
Inject it into a bear.
Stop it.
Okay. Get me at a ballpark. I need to be at a ballpark somewhere.
Hey, by the way, did you see that walk-off home run the other day for your Giants?
I actually saved it because I like to show Xavier some of these little videos. See, it happens to professionals as well. Because we literally over the weekend just had an in-the-park home run, and they're 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I was like, did you hear the announcer on it?
They called it a Little League. Is that a term that people use?
A Little League home run, yes.
Oh, okay.
Where essentially it's just all airs.
Okay.
And the guy says, the color analyst says, because he was asked, have you seen that before? He goes, I haven't seen that since I watched my kid play when he was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, that literally just happened this weekend.
I didn't know if that guy came up with that term or if that was a term used in baseball, a Little League or a Little League home run.
That is what it's known as, a Little League home run, because
that poor dude was gassed when he got to home plate.
He was a big boy. He's a big boy.
Yeah, and he wanted to stop at third, and Matt Williams was like, no,
get going.
Move your butt. Let's go.
Yeah, I've got that saved on the old Instagram.
Yeah, you should. Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. David Locke joins us next right here on The Zone.